Where are you guys going? Matthew? Where are you going? Rainbow Valley? Patrick? Where are you going?
I'm going to Rainbow Valley.
You're here. America sleeps. It is July 3rd, a Wednesday morning, and all is silent on Bulman Street. But we have some souls rousing, for it appears it is the morning to go to Prince Edward Island. And in the darkness, there is light, and I believe we can see some people stirring about. We have Sissy McGraw all set.
Yeah.
David McGraw.
Our connection to Rainbow Valley goes back with our children. We had 5 children, and each summer when we came to Prince Edward Island for vacation, that was probably the #1 destination point for them.
Where do you folks all live?
Westboro, Massachusetts.
How far are you going?
Prince Edward Island. Vacation.
We went when we just had our first 2 children, which would have been in '73. It was simple amusement. You know, it wasn't flashing lights and video games and things like that. It was nice. They were outside and everyone had a great time. It was also something good to hold over their heads, you know. Stop that fighting or there's no Rainbow Valley.
My husband and I had a daughter, and then in less than 2 years, just a little under 2 years, we had twin girls. And so Rainbow Valley became a special place where we could go. And when I was there with them, I felt that the cares disappeared and I could really enjoy them. Because I'm teaching, I was off in the summer. So we went about once a week, if not more.
When I was a teenager, I ended up working at the park for 5 consecutive summers. When I was offered the job there, it was like, yeah, this is good. This will be a fun place to work. It'll be a place where I will just enjoy being.
I think I started work for Rainbow Valley in 1985. When I first went there, it was only supposed to be for 8 weeks, and I went to paint some signs. All the signs at the time I went were all the same, and Earl was wanting something a little different, so that's how I started. And it was supposed to last 8 weeks, but 28 years later, I still do a little bit.
Every year, all the kids in the family would go down to Rainbow Valley, and we'd hang out there for the whole day. It's just one of those places where you're like, let's go to Rainbow Valley.
My very first visit to Prince Edward Island from Nova Scotia, my fiance at the time took me there, and we had no children, but we had a great time, and it started like a family tradition.
It was a place I always loved to go as a kid in the summer, you know, with my mom or my dad or whatever. And in school, it was the big trip at the end of the year. You got really, really excited about going. It was what you look forward to all year.
When you would approach Rainbow Valley on a school bus, When you would get within a certain distance, you would be able to feel the emotion on the bus.
Okay, we're 10 minutes away. Okay, we're 2 minutes away.
Cheering and clapping their hands, and they're so excited.
Okay, we're almost there, and then we'd like see the rainbow thing in the front, and we'd be like, we're there!
Just even the teachers, I remember them looking back and just smiling at us because we were so happy. They'd never seen us so happy.
And the students would be so excited to arrive, and they would just go.
Oh, there was no walking into the park, you were running. And everyone's like after you, like, slow down, we gotta pay first. And you're like, I don't care, I'm going through that gate.
It was like we were a bouncy ball, and we were trying to kept inside one little box where it was bouncing, and then the box broke. And then the kids were everywhere, like, it was insane. Like, we were having so much fun that the teachers were just like, whatever, we don't care, just have fun.
I looked forward to the day at Rainbow Valley as much as the children did. And it gave me as a teacher the opportunity to be with children in a different setting and to see them in a different way. I was one of the few adults that enjoyed the flume, and children who were under a certain age, I think it might have been 10, needed to have an adult in the flume with them. So I can remember different days when I'd go, I'd spend an hour or two just going with up the flume and down, and then take another child up the flume and down.
Working at Rainbow Valley was a real dream job because my boss was anything that I wanted to try, I was never told no. And we did some really unique and crazy projects. It's not very many places that you would go to your boss and say, I want to throw marshmallows out of an airplane. And he would say, that's a great idea, we'll have to get skydivers. I think we had 10,000 marshmallows. We had bought bags and bags and bags of marshmallows. The guys that we had hired, they threw marshmallows out of an airplane for us and landed them all within probably 10 feet of where we wanted them. We had, I think it was 20 dinghies, rubber dinghies, with no oars. And the marshmallows, of course, were all in the pond, in the water. And they had to go out and get the marshmallows and put them in a bucket. And then, of course, bring them back to shore. And we had to count them. We've done some foolish things.
This is where the gallery was, and for 19 summers, this is where I was.
Okay, what are you going to do, Gabe?
I'll shoot the stuff. It was just like the remote on a television, eh? When you press that and press the little trigger, it would cause the barrels would dump water on people, or the old guy'd turn around with the gun and squirt the water on people.
Now, tell me what you think of working here.
Oh, I like it working here. I really enjoy it. The people enjoy it and having a good time, and I enjoy seeing them having a good time.
That's something. Now, she's just sitting there waiting for you.
Yeah. My relationship with the chipmunk is the same as if you had a cat or you had a dog or what. He was my pet, is what he was. The little chipmunk would come and running up there, and then he'd jump up on the table and get in my pocket. It takes a long time to get them to do that. They're little wild animals. I probably spent either 2 or 3 summers with him. A couple, 3 summers. And then he just, one day, he never came back anymore. So that was the end of that.
I think the most fun I had at Rainbow Valley, both as a kid and as an employee, was working at the boat ponds. That was really a special time. People trying out a canoe for the first time, or a father teaching his daughter how to row. That was just really cool to be a part of that, that learning and that relationship that people had with one another. See, the thing about the boats is the paddle boats, there were 2. So it wasn't just an individual activity, it was a community activity. People did it with one another. And the same thing with the rowboats. You could seat a whole family in a rowboat. But all of these things it was about seeing people together, again, intergenerational relationship and activity. Parents and friends and boyfriends and girlfriends, and like it was just, all of these relationships were just so evident in there in a boat.
I was teaching at Elm Street Elementary School, and it was a day where rain was threatening. On this particular day, our principal decided that we would go, even though it was very cloudy. Usually on those field trip days, there'd be thousands of children at Rainbow Valley, but on this day, we were the only school that attended. And I was down at the place where they had the pizza. They sold the pizza, which is probably the farthest place away from the front entrance, with a small group of students, and it started to rain. And when it rained, it poured. And I wasn't sure how I was going to get the students back to the bus. This lady that was working in the pizza area decided she would make raincoats out of black garbage bags. And there was one little boy who was just sweet with these really big, round, chubby cheeks. And she leaned over and pinched him on the cheek and said, "Oh, you sweet little goose." And it was just at that moment that I thought that really is Rainbow Valley, because she was willing to do whatever was needed to make our experience a good one. And she just showed such love and care for that boy.
It was usually something that we made sure we did every summer, because we'd be out of school, you know, and Mom would make sure she had a day off, you know, and we'd pack a barbecue, we'd take the hibachi with us. And, you know, you pack up the car and you're like, all right, let's go to the Rainbow Valley for the day.
Pack up a picnic and gather everything together and go up as early as we get there, 10, 11 o'clock.
Got a good parking place. That was really good. You know, if you could park nice and close to the gate.
Sometimes it'd go this way, that way. It was like an exploration. You know, what are we going to find next? And then to see them run to the next attraction, you know, especially if it was a new attraction, boom, off they go, and to see what was there.
One time I went with my dad, and I was like, okay, Dad, do you have a pen? I'm going to circle off everything that we do today. And there is an original map. There was only a handful of things that we hadn't done. It's fallen apart a little bit, but I've kept it in a photo album for God knows how many years.
I don't think I'd ever get bored there. There were so many fun things. Like, well, for one thing, that's the big slide that was attached to a castle. We were there for hours, just like going down the slide, going back up, going down the slide. It was one of those things where when you're little, you could just stay there forever and just keep doing the ride again and again until your parents have to drag you away.
Witch's Cave?
Part of being a teacher was that I would need to go into the witch's cave with some of the children, and I would be as spooked out as any of them.
They liked the witch's cave in a scary kind of way. You know, they always had to get the witch's cave out of the way. You know.
The witch's cave was quite small. It was dark and musty.
Everybody's scared and nobody wants to go in, but I'd be like, come on, Mama, we have to go in the witch's cave. People tried to scare you to not go in there. Little girls die in there and things like that. Mrs. Sleepy Owl was this owl in a tree that every little while she would come out, and the doors, there was little doors with little handles, and they'd open up and the little owl would come out, and then somebody would ask her a question, she'd answer it for them, and she'd be like the wise woman, and so any question you ask her she can answer except for like, who are you? And then she'd be like, Sleepy Owl.
Tell them what your name is.
My name is Katie. My name is Allie.
I really wanted to be Mr. Sleepy Owl. But coming out of grade 8, I was a late bloomer. And I sat down at the little television screen where the intercom was. And the first kids came along, and I popped the owl out of the cage and said, hi, you know, how's it going? And we chit-chatted. And they said, who are you? And I said, I'm Mr. Sleepy Owl. And they said, you're not Mr. Sleepy Owl, you're Mrs. Sleepy Owl. I guess my voice hadn't broken yet. And after a little argument, I thought, this is not a fight I'm going to win. So that whole summer, I was Mrs. Sleepy Owl.
Lucy, what are we going on?
Scary ride.
Here we go, guys. Get ready.
Be like, okay, guys, we're going to the dark ride.
I didn't realize you fellas were waiting there for me. I'm glad to have you aboard. Fine looking crew.
It was, yeah, it's based on the history of rum running and prohibition, and the scenes were based on stories my dad told me.
I spotted one of them there rum runners just off the shore there. So how about I take you guys off and have a look at her act?
It was a big turntable, and there was, I forget, 5, 6 scenes. And you started out going out in the fog, and then you could see the moonshiners working, and then the lightning was striking.
I do remember that we were on a boat, and like on the sides, like over there, there'd be like a little scene of like a door, a lady at the door freaking out at her husband. Then you'd come up to the guy with a bucket on his head, and his friend going ha ha and laughing, and then it was just silly scenes going through.
Earl was a mastermind as far as creating this kind of stuff, and I had the opportunity to help design it. There was 11 characters that talked. The faces were made out of clay. I made them out of clay, and then we put a skin over top, but the clay was then removed.
To me, I liked that they kind of looked real and they kind of freaked you out, but they were also really funny.
What'd you think? Too scary?
They were supposed to be not really scary. They were just supposed to be kind of unique.
You like it, Ingrid?
Yeah.
The thing about the park is that there's so many different things to do, and yet every once in a while, everybody came together for an event.
We are now fast approaching 3 o'clock here at Rainbow Valley with the Magic Theater. And at 3 o'clock, we will have the magic show.
The year that I was doing videography, we taped Willie Pop-Up. Willie Pop-Up was a magician, and he did a show. So I don't know why, or I don't know how, but somehow I wrote Willie Pop-Up a letter, and it got to him. And then he sent us back a more professional picture that he autographed with a picture of him as the magician and what he really looked like in real life. And tell me how many people have an autographed picture of Willie Pop-Up.
Probably not too many.
This lady right there that pulls the string. Come on.
The magician wasn't comfortable asking just anyone up, and so I was the plant. Yeah, I had a couple of interesting moments with the magician. There was one day when one of the magic tricks went a little wrong. He had neck stalks, and he would connect the neck stalks together and put a balloon in and put a sword through the neck stalks and pop the balloon. And then the stalks would go around my neck, and of course he would put the sword in a different slot, which would bring the sword around my neck and out the front. But he put it in the wrong slot one day too. And so I felt this sword on the back of my neck. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. So after that, he said to me, one of these days, he said, Hugh, he said, I'm gonna kill you. It was fun though, working as the magician's aide each day. It was good fun.
When I was really little, the bridge actually terrified me. But then I got older and I'm on there and I'm the one that's shaking it the most. Run, jump, swing, do whatever you want, because there was a grating going up it so you couldn't fall. In my memory, there was no bottom. You were in the middle of a Lord of the Rings movie going across that bridge. There was no bottom to it. You're trying to get as many people as you can to do it, and still, it was dangerous, but it was fun. I think there was 8 of us one time, and we all went, and we made the whole bridge swing, and it was so much fun. It was.
I absolutely loved going into the barn and seeing the puppies and the kittens and the animals.
Oh, I always loved the petting barn. I always loved the baby animals and going up and trying to get the calf to come up so you could pet it because it was always so soft. And you know, you'd always see the little piglets running around. I remember them saying that you could adopt the animals at the end of the season. So I remember like every year like begging my mom to adopt one of the dogs, but we never got to.
You can't ever rake the yard because she wants you to throw the leaves. You can't ever shovel the snow because she wants you to throw the snow at her. So even though she's 8 years old, she's still very puppy. She is very much puppy. We wanted the kids to have the experience of Rainbow Valley, and we knew it was closing that year. And we wanted to, you know, take lots of pictures so that we could show that they were there. And we were right there, and just like every family, you went through the petting barn. And when we got through there, there was lots of cute little fluffy puppies. I just asked the lady what was going to happen to the puppies after Rainbow Valley had closed down. And she said that they were all spoken for and they had homes. Just on a whim, I said, well, can I leave my name? So, you know, if anything was to happen or whatever, they could call us and we could have a puppy. And she said, well, there's a long list, but you can leave your name. In September, we got a phone call from this lady, and this lady said one of the people on the list decided they didn't want the puppy, and there was only one dog left. Did we want her? When we went out, it was kind of eerie because there was not a soul around. There was no people, there was no cars, there was just nothing. And it was kind of a dreary September day. And we went into the barn and the lady had it all cleaned up and everything, and there was just blue. So she said, do you still want to take her home? We said, oh, we definitely want to take her home. So we packed her up, took her home.
In the spring, Earl went into the Loyalist and he booked a dinner for the staff for that summer. So when we went in there to have our dinner, that's when he got up and made the announcement. This is the final year for Rainbow Valley. It will close at the end of this year and be gone forever.
Everything changes. Nothing is permanent. There's a time for everything, and I'm sure there were some very good reasons why Rainbow Valley closed.
Well, I think we felt more of, as grandparents, that you know, the grandkids you know, wouldn't be able to enjoy it.
I remember I was crying so hard. I don't know, I was 10. I felt like a piece of my childhood was being ripped away from me.
I think my family was pretty upset because that was like one of the great places that we could go and play. Like, it was so big and fun.
The place was magical. I mean, there was something for all ages, even the parents. You know, they felt like they could relax, they could see the kids running around. You didn't have to be on them all the time. And, you know, even the people that worked there made sure the children were safe. So, you know, we wanted our children to have that experience, and we knew they weren't going to get it. So it made us, like, really sad that they were closing it down.
My husband was a diabetic since he was in his early teens. So it was something that, you know, we knew about and we looked after. And then in 2001, it just seemed as if suddenly everything went wrong. He ended up with a blister on his foot, and he had to go to the hospital for antibiotics with IV. And it just wasn't working, and they amputated his left leg just below the knee. During all this time, he suffered heart failure, his kidneys failed, and I had called the kids home 3 times because they didn't think he was going to make it through the night. Labor Day weekend, we'd all planned that they'd all come home. Of course, they heard, well, Rainbow Valley's closing, and we've got to go one more time. We had 12 with us that weekend, and we took off. My son met us out just outside the gate and took his dad in the wheelchair, And they had picked out this really nice area just off from the main gate with picnic table, and it was in the shade. So we were just getting our cooler and everything settled, and my husband looks around and he goes, well, you know, it might be nice to see everything one last time. And as soon as he said it, I knew that he should not have said that. Because Len grabs the back of it, okay, Dad, let's go. They zipped him up over those hills and down around everything they could. And we come to the swinging bridge, and Bud turns to Len, and he goes, we used to have fun on that, didn't we? And he goes, well, Dad, we still can. And he just put him up over the ramp, and they took off, and they got out in the middle of the bridge, and my son starts jumping. He would go down, and the wheelchair would go up, and my husband would go up. And then the wheelchair would go down, and my husband would go down, and we had the strangest looks, because we're there, the family's there, and we're taking pictures and laughing, and people are walking by, and what are they doing to that poor man? Like, shouldn't somebody stop them? We're saying, oh, he's having a great time. Oh, don't worry about that. Going through and seeing everything and having the kids there, and it was a really good day for him, which by this time there weren't that many really good days.
Now we've got a whole lot of people writing here. I love Rainbow Valley, and so does everyone else in PEI. It's loads of fun, and I have tons of memories. This park is the most amazing, magical, old-fashioned, fun place on earth. We knew it was very popular. We had no idea that people would ever go to the trouble of sending all of this in. When there was overflow in the parking lot, they were busy days. There'll be over 700 cars there, between 700 and 800 cars in that parking lot. You know, I'm getting old and my health's not great, and it was sort of, what do you do? Do you stay or do you sell? Suddenly you have an opportunity. You're a bit discouraged with the marketing situation within the province, and one of the things that you found when you're in business, that if you had government money in your project, the government will market you. If you're independent, and as we were, they are not nearly as interested in marketing you. You know, even today, I still miss Rainbow Valley, but I don't miss Rainbow Valley half as bad as the province does, as PEI does. PEI misses Rainbow Valley. In January of 2005, I went to the Lay Clinic in Boston and got my health problem fixed up, and had I known I was going to be able to do that, I probably wouldn't have sold it. But it was too late then. You'd made the deal. And when you looked at the crowd that was around that summer, you kind of looked at it and thought, this was a mistake. But, you know, we had sold it, and that was it.
When they came along and said to me, Rainbow Valley's gone, you could have knocked me over with a toothpick, because I thought that the amount of enjoyment and the type of place, that this place would be gone when everything else was gone. But not to be. Yeah.
I think the last day was like around the last week that we were in PEI, so we were like, let's go to Rainbow Valley last day. And so, I think my mom said to say goodbye to all the rides when we were there, because that was the last time.
There was a feeling of a celebration, of something coming to an end, but a celebration for what had been experienced.
They were just walking around looking at things. They were quite quiet. It was a sad day for a lot of people.
And I think they were very sad themselves, the Davisons, to have the place closed, But they were getting older, and he didn't want somebody taking it over that'd run it into the ground either, you know.
It was fun still because you were there, but it was a really, really emotional day even right now. people took their children there, and you know, even grandparents probably took their children, and now I'll never have that opportunity to take my children or even my niece, and it's a little upsetting. Sorry.
There's a golden light, there's a special glamour that plays over the northern part of our island. There was something about Rainbow Valley. It was the perfect center of what that goldenness was all about. I'm an editorial cartoonist, so rather than just strict politics, I like to comment on the everyday aspects of island life. The public of PEI is hereby advised that as of 0600 hours on Monday, September 5th, Parks Canada will begin bombing Rainbow Valley back into the Stone Age. Have a nice day. In many ways, my cartoons were prompting Earl and Irene to hang in there and let's keep going forever. My cartoons were always saying what I think people would say if they had the courage sometimes to say it. It's a sad day when Rainbow Valley finally closed its door because it was the final end of a metaphor for the island way of life. I said to myself, aha, one more part of the island has eroded, it's fallen into the sea, and it'll never come back again because there's not enough people with imagination and just sheer hard work to make it happen. You don't have poetry and whimsy dictating a creation of a theme park anymore. You have focus groups to decide what will be built or what won't be built. And that's why I was so sad when it did go, because I know that children will always be children and parents will always be parents. And with a little help from our friends in the Department of Tourism, I think it could have been Rainbow Valley forever and ever and ever.
I figured the government was just being jerks and wanted to buy more land because they just wanted more walking trails. And I'm like, it's PEI, everything's a walking trail. But now that I'm older, you know, you see the owner was getting up there and he couldn't look after it anymore, and he had a really good offer on it. So, you know, it's understandable at this point, but when you're little, you're like, why would you do this to us?
There was a lot of questions, you know, the first few years afterwards, you know, sort of why is Rainbow Valley closed? I had a number of, you know, friends my age sort of say, well, how come you didn't want to do it, John? And that was kind of, you know, it was kind of hard because I knew there was such a warm feeling to the place, and you know, all of a sudden here I was the guy that didn't take it on. Looking back, maybe I could have and should have, but at the time it just, it wasn't right for me and I wasn't ready for it. I miss that excitement. And my wife could never sort of understand why when we finished for the summer in September, I was always a little bit down, and she just said, well, you know, you've got time to yourself now. You can do some things. And I said, yeah, but through the summer, I was important. People came, they had a problem, and you had to try and fix the problem to make things run smoothly. And all of a sudden, the day you close, you're just working on putting things away from the winter, and if you don't show up, nobody really cares. But you always knew, you know, spring was going to bring it again, and that day was sort of a turning point. All of a sudden, when we start taking things down the day after we close, they're not going to be taken down to be packed away and ready for next year or to be worked on over the winter. You were just packing them away in a box and putting them in storage somewhere. At the time, I didn't have kids of my own. Of course, now, you know, we closed in 2005, the fall of 2006. We had our first child, and I think the first thing that really hit me was the fact that I wasn't going to take Gracie to Rainbow Valley.
I haven't been back to the park since. There's a lot of memories there, a lot of good memories, and I'll just leave them there.
I haven't been back on a regular basis. I've been there probably, I'll say 3 times. But it's hard going through. I think just because I spent as much time there as I did, and it meant so much. It's kind of like every time you go back, you're going to the funeral of a friend.
Every time I drive by and I just see it's so empty, and it's big and it's green and it's lovely, like, you know, a lot of nature, it's just not the same. You know, when you used to see those rainbow arches and see the UFO and the castles and stuff, you used to get kind of excited. Now you look and it's like a sense of a loss.
So the magic show has come to an end. Come to find out, the assistant was none other than the magician himself. And as the magic show comes to an end, so does another day at Rainbow Valley on Prince Edward Island.
The place was made out of fiberglass. We called it Fiberglass Valley for fun. And what did a water slide have to do with a rowboat, have to do with a gift shop in the shape of a flying saucer, have to do with a witch's cave, have to do with a magic show? It seemed like there were all these bizarre components to this park, and yet there was something about it that was magical.
When you crossed over that bridge, there was no other place in Canada or United States that you could go and see what you've seen there, because we made the stuff there. It was fiberglass, but it was unique because you couldn't go and buy it anywhere else.
It was just another way of doing things that was made here, right here on the island. It wasn't cookie cutter, like dropped in on us. It was something that a real island family created, and it evolved over many years.
Rainbow Valley, you know, appeared to children of all ages, and it had something for children of all ages. So I think as our family grew, fortunately for us, Rainbow Valley also grew for the ages of the kids.
Just the same as someone who bakes something and puts love in it, it turns out differently. Someone who creates things and builds things with such passion and such love really does touch the finished product. And I think that's what made Rainbow Valley so special.
You shared it with your childhood friends. I think that's what made it special, was they were memories specific to being a child and like the people that you went with.
It was low tech, very low tech, and yet enough was offered to people, children especially, to invite them into imaginary play. It evoked imagination in children, and I think it did so for adults as well. And when that imagination was stimulated, it just became a magical place. It became a place where all of these bizarre components could somehow work. There was a little bit of something for everybody, and people could play in the way that they wanted to play.
He didn't have to plead with me to come down here, because it was the most wonderful 19 years I ever had in my life.
It might have just been a fun park, but to me it was like a magical world. And it was so much fun that I don't think I'll ever forget it.